Welcome back to the FTN College Basketball Betting Show. I'm your host, Mike Randall. You can follow me on Twitter at Randall Rand. And here at FTN, we continue to get you ready each and every day. We're learning. It's a Bayesian process. We get more information about college basketball. We apply it here, and we tell you who to pick to make that money. Make sure to like and subscribe here on the YouTube channel. We come to you 3 days a week. We alternate depending on the slates. And today we have an incredible slate of games that we're going to bring you. After we learned a few things last night, we learned some stuff over the weekend. I have a ton of games to get to. We're not even going to recap yesterday because I have so many games that I want to talk to you about here. Of course, get me some questions there in the chat. Send them across and we will discuss them. Couple things really quickly. Make sure that you learn to look to see if there are major injuries. See if players are out. Remember, a couple of our picks over the last week or so have completely flip-flopped based on injuries. Temple game, LaSalle last week. Remember, I liked LaSalle, but I said if Jaleel White and Jameel Reynolds both played and started, that I would go with Temple, and that's exactly what happened. Temple pulled away in the second half. Indiana State versus Miami of Ohio. I liked Miami of Ohio at home getting 6.5 points. However, right before tip-off, Julian Lewis, 14, 6, and 5, does so many things for the Redhawks there at Miami, Ohio, was ruled out for no reason. So Indiana State was the play, and they blow them out. And, of course, we talked about Rutgers, Indiana on Saturday. Paul Mulcahy, the guard, was active point guard, played 24 minutes, first game back from an injury, got a 6 points, 4 assists. That was more than enough here for the big win for Rutgers. So we're going to get right into the games here, folks. We'll go across the dial. So many great things to talk about and a lot of games that I want to get to. We will start, of course, with the early one that's going to tip off, and that's Air Force and South Dakota. Now, in this case, South Dakota, Air Force is always tough at home, 6,800 feet above sea level. But this year, they also have some talent. Air Force, top 10 in the nation, defending the three, which is where South Dakota generates 37% of their points. Air Force beat Montana at home. They beat Delaware at home. South Dakota is a bit inflated after their 69-66 win over an overrated BYU team. Coyotes blowout at Wisconsin, blowout Ole Miss, and then lost by 7 Coastal Carolina. All those teams are better than Air Force, but the line here is smaller. South Dakota led by first-year coach Eric Peterson. We like our advantage with Air Force. Let down spot here for South Dakota. We're going Air Force laying 3.5, not South Dakota State, South Dakota there. Air Force laying 3.5 in our first game. Moving on next. People don't want to hear this, and they don't want to believe it. Yale's good. Yale is really good. Yale is traveling to Butler, which is always a tough place to play at Hinkle, but I like Yale in this game getting these 6 points. Butler has played well under Thad Matta. Thad Matta now back with the Bulldogs, doing a very nice job. Butler last few games has played well. They beat Kansas State. They beat Tennessee Tech at home. But Yale is very, very disciplined, and they're going to fight and battle, and they're not going to be intimidated on the road. You look at these two teams, very similar in profile. Yale doesn't turn the ball over. Butler tries to force turnovers, but they're not going to be able to turn over Yale. Yale, great on the defensive boards. Butler, awful on the offensive boards. Both teams defend the three well. Both teams are efficient in the two-point arc. Yale's defense inside the arc a little bit better. Free throw shooting, Butler a little bit better, but they are close. They both get points evenly distributed from the three-point line, two-point line. I don't think people are backing Yale. This line has actually gone up. I think it was 5.5 last night. Now it's 6.5. I like Yale. I think Yale is live in this spot. I think Butler in a couple games in a row here. You're talking about these games that occur, folks, in December. Not as packed. Kids have finals. Some leave early. It's just a weird spot. So you bring in a team like Yale that is disciplined, that plays good basketball, that rebounds under James Jones, and has won big games on the road. They played Vermont earlier this year at home. Vermont is good, folks. John Becker beat them by 29 points at home. This team is flammable. They're tough. 6.5, too many points, going with Yale here in our second game on the road against Butler. There are some big games tonight, folks, and so we're going to go to the first big game here at MSG. Texas versus Illinois. I'm going with Texas here against the Illini. I've been very impressed at what Chris Beard has done here with this Texas team. They are ranked number 2 in KenPom. They're fantastic on defense. They're great at defending the three-pointer, holding teams to 23%. That's 5th best in the nation. They are great on the interior as well, 42%, and they turn you over. They are facing an Illinois team Disappointing loss on the road against Maryland. They had a chance in that game. Mike Mayer, three-point shooter, came over from Baylor. He got into foul trouble. I have a question about their depth. I think this Texas team is good. I don't know why in this spot you have them only at 2.5 points. I think they win this game comfortably by about 5. I think Texas is a legitimate Final Four team. They have great balance. They don't shoot it great, but I don't think Illinois is going to shoot it great against Texas either. I think it's a physical game. I like the depth of Texas. I am laying 2 points here. And I'm also going to go in this same game with the under of 142.5. It's at MSG. It's two very good teams. I don't think this becomes a track meet in a game that's a top 25 matchup between two really solid clubs. I see it being both teams in the 60s, maybe like 68, 63, something like that. I don't think they get to 140. This line is going up. It was 140 last night. I am going under 142. Hang around, maybe get a couple extra points. Two very solid teams at MSG at a neutral site. Texas isn't great from three, but they defend the three well. Both rebound well, lower possession game. Always like the under in these neutral games. That's the first big game we have on the slate tonight. Other games, I wanted to pick Arkansas badly in this game, but I'm just going to go with the over. Arkansas can score on anyone, especially at home. They have lit teams up back and forth. You look at their last few games, they scored 99 against San Jose State. They played a very, very good Troy team at home who just battled San Diego State last night. Troy, 74 points they scored there. San Diego State on a neutral, they put up 78 in overtime. They put 87 against Creighton. This team can score, and UNCG is not going to slow them down. UNCG, slower pace, but is still giving up some big numbers. They gave up 75 to Stephen F. Austin. They gave up 73 to North Carolina A&T. I don't see, even in a sleepy spot, how Arkansas doesn't in this game get to like 75, 80 points, and that should be enough to hit the over here. So I'm not going to lay that number. I think it's around 19, but I'm going to go with the over here with Arkansas and UNCG. A few other games we have going on here. I don't know why Iona is an underdog at home, and I love St. Louis. But Iona has played very well, tough, strong, has really attacked the basket, and they're starting to understand what's going on with Rick Pitino's offense. I love St. Louis. That is a tough place to play in New Rochelle. I am going with Iona taking the small number here at home against St. Louis. That is going to be a competitive game. They're going to have ball pressure. I don't think at some point St. Louis is great at shooting. They still haven't come around yet. But if you look at Iona, they beat Canisius by 30. They beat Niagara by 22. They beat Vermont on a neutral by 21. Same type of team. Vermont, slow, likes to battle. I love Yuri Collins in St. Louis. You know I've picked them several times. I don't like them giving points in this spot against Iona. And I'm going to marry this one here again. I think it's a close game. I will take the points, and I will take the under here with Iona and St. Louis. That gym is a tough place to play. St. Louis is certainly going to bring their defense because defense always travels. I like the under in this game. I like Iona to win the game. I'll take the 2 points in case it's a last possession battle. Again, coin flip game. You've heard me say that before. Iona, Rick Pitino against St. Louis. Really good battle. If this game was in St. Louis, I'd go the other way, but Iona is too hot at home here. And St. Louis at times this year, as much as I love them, little sketchy against Auburn away. They battled, lost to Maryland. Last couple of games, Southern Illinois at home, only 13 points. Iona inside, Nelly Jr. Joseph, the big man. I will take the points in that battle as well. You heard me talk about Vermont. I'm going back to it. I know there's some proximal rivalries here. You know, sometimes when you get a Dartmouth or Vermont, this game can be close. But John Becker's squad has been tested, and they are starting to play very, very well. They struggled to start the year. Lost away at St. Mary's, tough game. Lost in 2 overtimes away, Cal State Fullerton. Lost by 2 points away at USC. Lost Iona on the neutral by 21. Yale got blown out. But since then, they've kind of turned it around. They beat Ball State on a neutral. They battled UNC Wilmington, who's no pushover, lost that game by 2. I like Vermont here on the road against Dartmouth. They just blitzed the Merrimack team on the road by 23, who's terrible against the spread. John Becker, it's not high enough for me yet. If this line gets up to 6, 6.5, 7, then it is a complete stay away. But Vermont with John Becker laying the points here against Dartmouth, no problem there. Next game is a pick against teams that I don't like. I have told you all year I am fading North Carolina until further notice. I am fading Duke until further notice. We'll get to that momentarily. There are some teams, Louisville has been a cash moneymaker for us because you just keep fading them and they can't cover the number no matter what. I am fading Loyola Chicago here. Green Bay just played yesterday. They earned a nice win, their first win of the year. So now they're playing back-to-back here. People are still on the Loyola Chicago bandwagon. That's not the way it should be. This is not the same team with Porter Moser as with Drew Valentine. Don't look now. Do you realize that Loyola Chicago is 3 of 5? Do you realize that Loyola Chicago has actually lost 5 of their last 6 games? That the only team they beat at home was Central Arkansas by 15, and they allowed 70 points. They are playing no defense. The Loyola Chicago team that we used to love, it is not the same team. We don't talk about it anymore. They don't play defense. Their offense is sketchy. They're only shooting over 30%, barely over 30% from three-point range. They're turning the ball over left and right. Green Bay has some players. They can make some shots. And I just think this line is too high. I am not laying 19.5 points against Loyola Chicago. It's just that simple. They've been terrible against the spread. They're coming off a loss at home to DePaul. They then have to go to Clemson and play Clemson on a neutral site. I like Green Bay. I like that they played last night. Sure, it was IUPUI. It wasn't great, but they've also played some other teams here. They've played Illinois, Chicago. They played Wisconsin. Green Bay lost to Wisconsin by 11. I just think 19.5 is too much for a game that is close. Proximal rivalry, Chicago, Milwaukee, fine with a Green Bay. No problem. I'm taking the points. I will tell you right now that is just a pick on the fact that I am fading Loyola Chicago. Next game up, you must have known this was coming. If you follow this show and you tune into this show, you knew this pick was coming. You're telling me that I'm going to get 11.5 points with James Madison there, headed into Virginia to play UVA. I will grab it every single time. This James Madison team has been fantastic. I love this team. And listen, this is not going to be an easy game, but James Madison is no stranger against difficult teams. James Madison has battled. They are 6-1 against the spread, and now they have to play Virginia, who has not been fantastic on defense this year. They did beat Michigan 60-78. Michigan is not talented. I'm going to argue James Madison has a better offense than Michigan does. Florida State, who's abysmal, just beat them by 5. And on the horizon, the next game after this game for Virginia is at home against Houston. They're welcoming Houston in on December 17th. Now, that's 11 days away. I understand that. But James Madison wants to prove that they're for real in the worst way. They are great at turning teams over. They're great at shooting threes, which is where you can get Virginia, and they are solid on the interior. I think it's too much. It's actually up to 12 right now, so I'm grabbing it. Virginia's solid on offense. James Madison solid on offense. Virginia going to rebound. They're going to be up and down. They're not great. JMU is great on the offensive boards. The only issue is that James Madison turns the ball over a ton because they play at a fast pace. But I think this Virginia team is not going to stifle them in the full court. I think James Madison's going to disrupt them. I think they're going to take a page out of the Florida State book. I love the Dukes here getting 11.5 against Virginia. That is where I'm going. It's actually up to 12, and I'll take it there. No problem. You knew that pick was coming if you followed this show, and there's no problem with that at all. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We followed that theory with VCU when we got it to the window against Temple. We are doing the same thing here with Toledo -4.5 against Northern Iowa. I like this Toledo team. They laid a stinker there against George Mason, which really bothered me. But I think this team is ready to bounce back. They lost to George Mason. They had the big win at home over Richmond. They're going to be angry. These games on the road against Northern Iowa are very tough, but this is not the same Northern Iowa team that you've had in the past. Northern Iowa has struggled this year. They lost away at Bradley. They lost on a neutral to Grand Canyon. They lost to San Francisco. They're coming off a nice win at home over Evansville. Doesn't do much for me. I like this Toledo team. It's up to now. If the line is climbing, it's 4.5. I am still laying it here. I believe Toledo's going to win the game, and this line is not big enough for me to say I'm going to hedge and take the points. Toledo's offense is superior. The Northern Iowa defense has not been great metric-wise. Northern Iowa does not rebound the ball on offense. They're not going to get a lot of second chances. Toledo can put one of those spurts on. This Richmond-Northern Iowa matchup that we've had. They played Richmond, now in Northern Iowa. They're very similar in styles here. Laying points at Northern Iowa, never easy. But this Northern Iowa team is not the same as it's been in the past. They're not as potent as offense. They're just not. Toledo is going to roll. I love Toledo coming off a loss here to George Mason. That's ridiculous. They should not have had that loss. I think they get it back today. I'm taking them against Northern Iowa. And this is a Bayesian process, folks. I want to remember that. So we're going to improve here. When we pick a team and we're wrong and we watch them, we're going to learn. I picked against Maryland with Illinois, and now I'm going with them at Wisconsin. I'm not a fan of Kevin Willard. I told you that. But this team, Maryland, has tremendous balance, both inside and outside. That win against Illinois, huge. They are 8-0 this year, Maryland. They've been solid against the spread. Jameer Young is a game changer. The guard who has come over to them and has joined them, 24 points, 4 of 9 from three-point range. Hakeem Hart got going. He's always flammable from three-point range for Maryland. 5 of 6 from beyond the arc as well. They made 9 threes against Illinois. That was a big, big win at home. I do not think this is a letdown spot. I like Wisconsin, and I like taking Wisconsin at home. I just don't think they have as much talent as they have in the past. Wisconsin lost to Wake Forest at home, 78-75. They did beat Marquette away with a nice comeback, but that was a rivalry game, so maybe we have a little bit of a letdown. This is the first conference game that they have here, Wisconsin. Now Maryland, they have to play Maryland today. Then they're playing Iowa on the road. That's a road matchup here. I don't think this Wisconsin team is as talented as it's been in the past. It can shoot the three, but they are terrible inside the arc. Maryland is great defending the three-pointer. They got up in Illinois and limited them. I think they're going to limit Wisconsin here. I get it. It's almost begging you to take Wisconsin, but it's a Bayesian process. I like Maryland. I'm impressed with the inside, outside, Donta Scott rebounding. You know they're going to play defense with Willard. It's going to be a slower game. Give me Maryland plus 1.5 in this matchup. You know I love Sam Houston State. And so I'm going back to the well with Sam Houston State against Oklahoma State. No problem there. Sam Houston State has been aggressive. They beat Oklahoma to start the season. And I am not in any way nervous about having these points against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's been very sketchy and up and down. Mike Boynton's a great coach for the Cowboys, but they're not always great at home. They lost to Southern Illinois at home this year. They got blown out by Oakland last year. They're coming off the loss to Connecticut. Sam Houston State is tough. They shoot the three. They're aggressive. This is a proximal, a sort of rivalry game. They're shooting 39% from beyond the arc, and they're limiting their opponents to just 30%. They also turn you over like crazy. If Oklahoma State, I expect a dead game today. There's not going to be a lot of fans at this game in December. They're going to come in. The Bearcats are going to turn you over. Jason Hooten's done a fantastic job. 9.5 is too much. I love this game. It's very similar to me, the Kent State game against Gonzaga. You figured Gonzaga, Kent State, small school coming in. Here comes Sam Houston State, big school, Oklahoma State, Big 12. No way. Bearcats turn you over. Bearcats make threes. Bearcats are great on the boards. Oklahoma State better bring their best effort. I think they're a little flat after falling victim to UConn. So I'm going with Sam Houston State, 9.5 at Oklahoma State. We mentioned this one earlier. I gave you the spoiler alert, and I'm going back to it here. I'm taking Iowa against Duke. And this game, Jimmy V Classic, is in MSG. Folks, until further notice, I don't have consistency with Duke in the backcourt, and that's my concern. They played Ohio State. That was a very nice win. Jeremy Roach did a nice job. He gave them 13 points. He gave them 3 of 6 from the field, 7 of 9 from the free throw line. Kyle Filipowski is the issue for Duke, and he's played very well. He's been the most consistent kid, 7-foot freshman, 16 points there against Ohio State. The problem with Ohio State is they could not score. They were only 3 of 13 from beyond the arc there for Duke. That was not Duke's defense. They scored 72 points. That was Ohio State just doing what Ohio State does, which means they struggle once in a while. But here comes Iowa, who's going to have no trouble scoring. First off, they don't turn the ball over. They are number 1 in the country, the Hawkeyes, at not turning the ball over, offensive turnover percentage per KenPom. They are great on the offensive board, so they're going to battle the bigs inside. They are solid inside the arc with Fran McCaffrey, and you know that they want to run. They have beaten Seton Hall this year. That was a road game. They beat Clemson, which is a neutral. They had a big win over Georgia Tech. The only place they stumbled was TCU. In this matchup, I love what I'm getting from Iowa. I love that Chris Murray has ascended to his role for his brother Keegan Murray. You have Patrick McCaffrey who can shoot the lights out. Philip Ibraka inside is tough. I am not sold on Duke. This line is down to 2.5. And now what's interesting with that, folks, is you know that people are coming in and they're betting Duke. Duke always draws money. It's like the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. I am taking Iowa, which is now down to 2.5. You can take on the money line to win the game outright. I have no problem with that at all. This next pick is similar to what we talked about when we started. It depends on the injuries. Rivalry game on the road. This game has now gone up to 4.5, but I need to know what's going on with the Georgia Bulldogs. Yes, I am actually picking a Mike White-led team, but I'm picking it because it's a rivalry, and I'm picking it because I think this number is a little inflated because both Kario Akindo and another starter did not play in the last game. They're having some COVID issues. This is a game, I'm warning you, that I could flip-flop on, and I'll put it in the bet tracker here at FTN. If Georgia is shorthanded and they only had 7 players in their last game, I am going to lay the points here where Georgia Tech has won 5 consecutive home games. But if Georgia is fully healthy and Akindo plays, who is a critical player, he doesn't turn the ball over, and he's a one-man wrecking crew. So rivalry game, I will take Georgia. Yes, I am taking a Mike White team because I'm not that impressed with Georgia Tech if they are fully healthy. If they are not fully healthy, I will go the other direction, and I will take Georgia Tech in that game. That is one that can easily turn at a moment's notice. Almost done here, folks. A couple more I'll throw at you quickly. Baylor's not losing at home to Tarleton State. Billy Gillespie, Tarleton State, 3rd year here in D1. Baylor, tough, shoots well at home. I have no reason to believe this is not a 20-point win. I know it's an in-state rivalry. No way. Baylor at home wants to make a statement coming off their big win. They just tend to pound these sub teams, these non-competitive Power 5 teams at home. Baylor historically has covered very well at home in these spots. Baylor, home, Tarleton State. I just don't think Tarleton State has enough here. So anytime I can get Baylor at home against a non-Power 5 team under 20 points, I'm going to do it. I will take the Bears there. I mean, gosh, you know my thoughts on Boston College. New Hampshire, this is a questionable one, but 14.5. You know, Connie Form is Connie Morg. No one's going to be at this game. New Hampshire getting 14 points. Boston College has struggled at home against Detroit. They've struggled at home. They lost at home to Maine. Here comes another New England school that's going to be fired up to test their mettle against Boston College, which is the primary Division I school there in New England besides Connecticut, and they think they can get a win. I'm always going to take points here at Boston College, who plays a slow pace, keeps the game low. I don't think they lock down New Hampshire. I think New Hampshire can make some shots from the outside here. New Hampshire coming off a loss, Columbia. There's no way people are taking them. I always take the points here at Boston College. You know that. And the last one, folks, this line made no sense, so I had to grab it. George Mason under Kim English has actually been playing very well lately, but I don't see why this line opened up only at 13.5 for a team that is coming off a win over Toledo, for a team that's coming off a win over Hofstra. Maryland Eastern Shore is coming in. Maryland Eastern Shore likes to run up and down the court. They've also battled Liberty. They've also battled Virginia. They've also battled Charlotte. So they've battled some good teams here. I just thought this line was fishy when I saw it. You don't want to hit this game, that's fine. You can go with some other plays that I have that are stronger. But this one jumped out at me because I saw this George Mason only 13.5. Now it's 14.5. Not sure that Kim English can't have a sort of dead game here with Mason coming off their last win. And they had a nice win last time against Toledo. Shocked me on that one. But so they've won 3 games in a row. They've beaten quality opponents. And now Maryland Eastern Shore, they're only going to beat by 13. Doesn't make sense to me. So in those games, I'll go a half unit here on Maryland Eastern Shore. So just recapping, folks, Maryland Eastern Shore here against George Mason. New Hampshire getting 14.5 against Boston College. I'm going to do it. And if you take the road team at Conti Forum, you will win at least 60% of your games this year. I'm telling you right now. Always take Baylor at home against sub-impressive teams, non-competitive teams. When they're getting under 20, I will do that. I love Iowa here, which is now 2.5. I got it at 3 against Duke at MSG. Duke is always going to get the money. People are always going to favor Duke. Nope, I'm going here with Iowa. I'm impressed with what Fran McCaffrey has going, and they are battle-tested and have had some big wins. Sam Houston State in a sleepy spot against Oak State. No problem with that. 9.5. Sam Houston State will turn you over. Oklahoma State could easily get down 15-6, something like that in this game early on because people just don't bet on Sam Houston State, but the Bearcats are for real. This one's frisky. Maryland on the road plus 1.5. I know Wisconsin is tough at home, but I am impressed with this Maryland team. They will match them on defense, and I'm not impressed with Wisconsin's offense. And I think Jameer Young and Hakeem Hart can make a couple threes late to pull this game out. You want to go money line, I'm fine with that also. No, I don't think Toledo is losing yet again at Northern Iowa. I think they're winning. So if I think they're winning by 2 or 3, I'm going to lay the 4.5. The only way I would stay away from this game is if it got up to 6 or 7 points. James Madison is now at 12. You know, the rivalry here with Virginia. Virginia 11 days from now is going to have Houston coming in. I will take James Madison 12. I love the Dukes. They've been fantastic for me this year against the spread. Only loss that we had was North Carolina, and they shot the lights out. I don't think Virginia does that, coming off a poor performance against Florida State. I'm fading Loyola Chicago like I'm fading Louisville. I'll take 19.5 with Green Bay. Green Bay just got their first win. Maybe they got a little momentum, but I don't think Loyola Chicago has the offense or the defense to cover anyone at home at that level. Vermont -5 against Dartmouth. Yes, it's a proximal rivalry. Dartmouth will be excited, but John Becker is a well-coached, disciplined team. I think they pull ahead and get this game to about 8 to 10 points and win on the road. 2 picks here at MSG. Texas -2.5 against Illinois. I think Texas is a better team. I think their defense is better. And I think Illinois showed a little bit of warts there when they lose a player like Mayer who gets into foul trouble. They cannot afford to get in foul trouble. They don't have the depth yet. And I think Texas makes enough shots here. But just in case, I'm also going to pick the under at 142.5 on the neutral site game in MSG. Iona, this line, I was shocked. I thought it'd be Iona by 1. And in that case, maybe I take St. Louis, but I'm taking Iona plus 2 points here against St. Louis, especially at home. And I'm taking the under of 151.5. I know both teams want to run, but I think both teams in a close matchup is going to be a lower scoring game than it is a higher scoring game. Death taxes in Arkansas overs at home. UNCG is not slowing them down. I think Arkansas will gamble for steals sometimes, and they give up some points. But Arkansas over 135, I think they get to 75, no problem. So all I need is 60 points or so coming from UNCG. That's fine. You're going to keep doubting the Ivy League. Go ahead. I like Yale getting 6.5 against Butler. I am fine with that one as well. I know Thad Matta has done a nice job. Hinkle's a tough place to play, but Yale is for real, 6.5, and they hit the boards, and they do so, and will keep this game close. You want to be money line, I wouldn't mind that either. And the one that'll tip us off here, Air Force -3.5. That should be South Dakota, not South Dakota State. Air Force here -3.5. I think Air Force at home is always tough, and I think they get going and they make a ton of shots. Folks, thank you so much for joining us here. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit like as well. We will come back to you later in the week. Of course, we'll always be here on Saturday. I'm Randall Rand for FTN. College basketball, we have you covered like none other here. Make sure you subscribe, like. Thanks for the support. We will see you again soon. Good luck, and let's get to the window.